It is 5:15 this Monday, July 25th, and the Carroll City Council is now in session. Would you all please rise and join with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And okay, a roll call. We have an introduction of on tonight's agenda, introduction of a new employee, someone who really does not need an introduction, but we're going to do it formally tonight. And Dan Honish was announced a little over a month ago as our new fire chief and building inspector. And so formal welcome from all of us here on the council, and on behalf of city staff, welcome aboard, Dan. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
A word or move on? Okay, you got it.
And I would just like to note before, as we move on, for roll call, Carolyn is on the Zoom call, just so that gets noted.
Okay, she hear us okay? Okay, before us we have tonight's consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes from the July 11th meeting, approval of bills and claims. There is one liquor license tonight, a new Class C liquor license with Sunday sales for the Las Tarascas Mexican Market on 118 East 7th. Is there any questions or comments about tonight's consent agenda? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to approve the agenda, please.
Motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve tonight's consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dirks.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Bordenero.
Yes.
Seaman.
Yes.
Schreck.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we have item number 5, oral requests and communications from the audience. And there are none. Yeah, quick one there. No ordinances to approve tonight. Item number 7, we have under resolutions. The first one is a 7th Amended and Restated Urban Renewal Plan, which includes a resolution fixing the date for public hearing on a proposal to enter into a development agreement with Brian and Holly Wendell and Jason and Karen Atherton. Mike, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So as you'll recall, on April 25th, the City Council provided direction to staff on the creation of the development agreement that was included in the packet today. And this is for the rehabilitation of property at 220 West 7th Street. Now, this property is locally known as the Villa or the Hoyt Mansion. Now, the property itself dates back to 1919, according to Carroll County Assessor records. And the development agreement that's included in the packet tonight reflects direction that the council provided to city staff on finalizing negotiations with the property owners. Now, this development agreement calls for the renovation of the interior and exterior of the property and to facilitate its improvement. Now, this work, per the development agreement, would need to be completed by December 31st of 2024. Now, construction could be approximately $1 million, and in exchange, the owners will receive from the city a TIF rebate over a 15-year period for 100% of the increase in property value attributable to the renovation work that they're completing on the property. The total rebate would be capped at $250,000, and under the current assessed property value of $209,210, to receive the full $250,000 based on the current TIF consolidated tax rebate and the 90% commercial property rollback, the building value would need to increase to approximately $1,010,000 to receive that over a 15-year period. So the request tonight is for the council to have a motion to set a public hearing for August 8th, 2022, and direct the city clerk to publish said public hearing notice as required by law. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council has this evening.
We've been over this already.
Anybody have any questions about any further clarification about it?
No, so we just need a motion, right?
Yeah, we'll need a motion to set the public hearing for August 8th per recommendation.
So I will make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to set the public hearing for August 8th, 2022 for the development agreement of the Brian and Holly Wendell, Jason and Karen Atherton, which is formerly known as the Villa. So a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Shrek,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Bordenero,
Yes.
motion carried.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, the next item under resolutions is a not to exceed $700,000 general obligation capital loan note for the rec center building improvement project. And I turn that back over again to Mike.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At the June 27th council meeting, the council awarded construction contract to Bating Construction to complete the Carroll Recreation Center Building Improvement Project 2021. Now, the total project cost for this project is $7,353,070. Now, the city has planned to use a number of funding sources for this project, including $700,000 in general obligation debt. Now, the planning for the $700,000 requires the council to have a public hearing to be held before we can issue the debt. Included in the council packet was a resolution setting the public hearing to issue the debt. Now, the proposed date for the public hearing would be the next regular scheduled council meeting on August 8th of this year. Staff would then be recommending that we issue the debt in combination with the debt issuance that's being planned with the Adams Street project in 2023. So the recommendation tonight is for the council consideration and approval of a resolution setting a public hearing date for August 8th, 2022, and directing city clerk to publish said notice. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council has this evening. Thank you.
There you have it. We've been over this time and time again, too. Any questions for Mike regarding this issue? If not, I would seek a motion to approve the resolution fixing the date for the meeting of the proposition to authorize loan agreement and issuance of notes and evidence of obligation of the city for the rec center building project and set the date for August 8th of 22. Is there a motion to that effect?
Second.
Yeah, a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bordenero. Yes. Dirks.
Yes.
Shrek,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
motion carried.
Perfect. Thank you again. Item number C under resolutions is a general obligation capital loan notes series 22 and 23 resolution for a treasury regulation city for the rec center project.
Thank
And
you.
so it's kind of a
Continuation.
tag one and tag two.
So
Go
Mark
ahead.
and Council, so as the council is aware, there are two planned debt issuances related to the rec center. The first is the local option sales tax general obligation debt of $5,400,000, and then the general obligation or GO debt issuance of $700,000 that we just noted. Now, it is planned to issue the lost GO in the fall of this year, and then to issue the regular GO, or the $700,000 GO debt with Adams Street in 2023. Now, likely there'll be some construction that will occur and expenses related to that construction prior to the issuance of the debt or taking out the debt. In order to be in compliance with IRS regulations, and because these are tax exempt bonds, the council would need to declare its official intent to reimburse itself. So to be effective, we need to do this within 60 days of actually incurring the expense. So the request for this evening is for the council to approve the attached resolution declaring the official intent under Treasury Regulation 1.150-2 to issue debt for the reimbursement of the city for certain original expenses paid in conjunction with the Carroll Recreation Center Building Improvement Project 2021. And I would be happy to answer any questions that the council may have this evening.
Any questions for Mike? So once again, the recommendation is for the council approval of the attached resolution to declare an official intent under Treasury Regulation 1.150-2 to issue debt to reimburse the city for certain original expenditures paid in connection with the Carroll Rec Center Building Improvement Project. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bordenero,
Yes.
Shrek,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Seaman.
yes,
Motion carried.
Perfect. Thank you again. Okay, you're on a roll, Mike. The next is going to be a fiscal year 21-22 year-end transfers resolution. This just cleans up a little loose ends, right?
Exactly. So with the city just completing its fiscal year 2022 budget year as of June 30th, as part of the reporting process, it's time to look at our financials and do some end-of-the-year transfers. There are a number of reasons why the city does transfers. One, for instance, the state code requires that when there are certain revenues coming in, they need to go into certain funds and deposit into special revenue funds. And then from there, they can be transferred to satisfy the expenditures that we've earmarked those funds for. And that is one of the main reasons, and a number of the transfers are related to that. Additionally, the city has chosen to track or account for some of the expenditures in one fund when then the funds are actually coming from another fund, and so to reimburse that. That helps us kind of track those funds. And so one instance would be our property liability insurance, and we fund that out of the general fund. However, then the portions that are related to our wastewater and water utility operations will get transferred from those funds into the general fund to reimburse the general fund once we've identified the correct costs. Also included in the transfer resolution is a comparison of fund balances once those transfers are all completed and what we anticipate the entity balances to be for the different funds. And then we compare that to the estimated fund balances that were developed as part of the fiscal 2023 budget. And there are, in some cases, you'll know some variances, and there's a number of reasons why we may incur variance. For example, we may have a construction project that we anticipated be completed at the end of fiscal year 2022 that isn't completed, or the progress didn't get as far as we thought it would be in fiscal 2022. So those expenditures will continue, and we'll incur those. They just did not they weren't completed when we anticipated. Additionally, the city may have received some additional funds or revenues, and then some of our expenditures may have been lower than we anticipated. So that would also account for some of those discrepancies. So unless there's any questions or recommendations for the council to approve the fiscal year 2022 end of the year transfer resolution, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council has this evening. So thank you.
Very good, Mike. Thank you. Any questions for Mike on this? And the recommendation you heard is consider an approval of attached resolution authorizing the fiscal year 21-22 transfers. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Shrek,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Seaman,
yes,
Bordenero,
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. On a roll, Mike, 7E, under item 7E is the Infill Housing Incentive Program. Take
We
it
just
from
need to
here.
keep the pace going.
Yeah, well, I like how it's going.
So at the July 11th meeting, the council gave direction to city staff to proceed with a number of actions on incentivizing housing development in the city of Carroll. One of those actions was the development of the Infill Housing Incentive Program, and a draft of that program was included in the packet along with a resolution for the council to consider. Now, the purpose of the Carroll Infill Housing Program is to provide incentives to home builders, real estate developers, and property owners and homeowners to expand the quality and perhaps more importantly, the quantity of available housing and inventory in our community. Now, I'm not going to go through all the terms that are in there and that are in the program and that are included in the packet in detail, but under this program for new homes with a building permit issued after August 1st of this year, the city of Carroll will provide up to a $20,000 incentive for newly constructed home values under $325,000. Now, I should stress that would be the construction of the home itself. This would not include any lot costs. That would be additional above that. Construction, when someone does apply and is approved, construction would need to start within 3 months after the application is approved by the council, and then all construction would need to be completed within the earlier of 18 months after the issuance of a building permit, or September 1st of 2024. And the reason that September 1st of 2024 is important is these funds are coming from ARPA, and we want to be able to reallocate those funds if a house wouldn't get constructed. Funds would be paid after the home construction is completed and within 30 days of the certificate of occupancy being issued. The program would be limited to the first 10 applicants, or $200,000. And as drafted, homes within Northridge, Rolling Hills, Timber Creek East, and Timber Creek West neighborhoods would not be eligible for this program. So, like I noted earlier, this is one of several different incentive programs that we're working to develop. Additionally, we're working to develop an incentive program with 704 Development Corporation related to Rolling Hills South, and the CADC related to Northridge. And those will be presented to council in the future as these development agreements are completed. And I would note that Rolling Hills will probably come several months from now when they are ready to break dirt and move on that development. CADC, we were just not able to get it put together to present council. We didn't get a draft until late Thursday from our attorneys, and so that will come here. It just wasn't prepared for tonight. So with that, the recommendation is for the council to consider approval of a resolution for the City of Carroll's Infill Housing Incentive Program. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that council has this evening. Thank you.
So Mike, just to be clear, the Timber Creek East, Timber Creek West neighborhoods, that is something that will be eligible in this next program that we're going to be having roll out.
So based on the direction we had from council at the July 11th meeting, the council did not want to do an incentive program for the Timber Creek neighborhood. So there is no incentive program developed at this point for that. Now, if the council wants to consider making changes, we can show some draft language that would do that. And I know there's some other questions that were presented, and staff is prepared to kind of go through some other options if the council wants to make those considerations this evening.
Mike, why did we put a cap on that? How did we come up with a $325,000 number?
So on the newly constructed home value, that really comes out of what we can justify out of our housing study that we have, and really talking with Nathan Overberg, what he really, we went around and kind of talked about that cap, and what he said is we really need, and this is directly from Nathan, regarding the right cutoff, because I had talked, I said, I think the council may want to talk about that cap and raising that cap. So what Nathan says regarding the right cutoff, if you go above the state's identified workforce housing limit, which we are at $325,000, the workforce housing tax limit's $266,000. He said that you're really sailing into uncharted waters. That's his words. And ideally, if you could identify something in your housing study that provides a justification for a particular cutoff, if not in the housing study, is there something else in a regional, state, nationwide literature studies that explain why the type of incentive is becoming necessary, or the type of incentives are becoming unnecessary or unhelpful? And if you can identify a figure tied to a median home income in your community or another community average standard like that, would be helpful. So that's what Nathan is really, because again, if you go back to the Iowa Constitution, it talks about public funds cannot go to a private entity. And then you then look at Iowa code that talks about economic development, and it does say for purposes of economic development, you can provide public funds to a private entity, but it provides a lot of different standards that you need to follow. And then you run into the standard in economic development where it talks about you need to do it for affordable housing. And so while we can show some justification up to 325 to do that, getting above that, we need to be able to justify that. Now, there is some case law that talks about affordable housing is not just low income or individuals of low means. It's also can be a doctor trying to come to a community. If they can't find a house that meets their needs, then that income range may lack affordable housing. And so it's not just low value homes, it can be all value homes. But you need to have what Nathan Overberg, our attorney, is advising, is you really need to justify and lay out the basis of why you're doing that. And so, he would say you need to have something in your housing study or some other piece of evidence that justifies going to a higher number. And then you need to have some cap level.
So in this first 10 applicants that we have, if we get a fair amount of people that want to say, I want to over 325, that would justify that we could do it on the next 10? I mean, you got something that,
It could possibly.
more than what we have now.
Yep.
Okay.
What I'm going to tell you is a lot of our houses, like especially in the neighborhoods that this is laid out for, 325,000. We spent some time because I knew 266 would be difficult, and so we kind of went around and there's some justification in the housing study for 325, and so we started pushing 325, and then looking at some newer construction in the community in some of our infill areas in and around like North Ridge, where we're going to have another incentive. 325 is a house value, construction value that seemed like, yes, we'd be able to cover.
So with the lot value, you're
Yeah.
talking 375 total project. So you're up in there. I'm okay with everything but the last bullet. I would like to talk about Timber Creek, east, west, and regular Timber Creek, of not excluding those. I'd like to have them in the full gamut of what we're looking at.
Yeah, even if they're not gonna be able to meet the $325 amount right now, but even have them considered in the next incentive program that's gonna be coming out, have something.
Back to that justification issue, Mike, don't we have documented cases? I mean, I seem to think of all of the housing discussions we've had over the course of the last 6 months. New Hope talked about that CFO they wanted to bring here and couldn't find housing, which would have been a fairly good paying job. I don't know if it's over 3.25 house, but that, and then we've heard from St. Anthony's how they had to go out and buy a house to accommodate for their new CEO. And then they've also lost some opportunities on a couple of surgeons as well. I mean, wouldn't we have a handful of cases already to justify that?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think what he really wants is, again, some type of evidence-based. Yes, we have a lot of different stories, and I've certainly have written about it in an op-ed, exactly what you're talking about. What he wants is either have RDG, who developed the housing study, to help, make that justification, or go out, like he said, and find some regional, state, or national literature that would support making those incentives more widely available. And I think even when you look at it in the state of Iowa, we want to get aggressive. That's the direction the council's given. I'm not aware of another community that's done 20,000 in an incentive. There's a few that have done 10. And so I think what Nathan Overberg is really wanting us to do is to lay out that case and to justify it so that if there is concerns raised later, that we can legally defend it, why we're using public funds for a private entity. Nathan's always going to take a conservative route. That's his job.
We've had prior conversations about that, and maybe, considering other council at some time, just for a little more liberal approach to some of those things. But that's not for tonight's discussion, but I'm hearing from at least more than, a couple members on the council, and myself included, I've wanted Timber Creek involved with this thing day one. I just don't know how you go excluding it, because, it's been deemed that, it's not necessary or not as productive, but.
Yeah, and again, I think, we wrote it based on the direction we got from council on July 11th. I think that's an easy pull out, and certainly.
Well, we've had time to think about this.
Yep.
Yeah, say right away, when I first seen this, I wasn't sold on it, but after I thought about it more and more, thinking, okay, somebody's gonna build there, or somebody's gonna come to this community, build there, and it's gonna be a higher end job, but, you know, if they are building, it's probably gonna open up a mid-level home for somebody else.
Well, I think we can all agree this is all, we're trying to develop our town, create a better tax base for us, get more people to Carroll. I look on here right now, I pull up Mid-Iowa. I put my minimum at 300,000, there's one house that pops up. One house. So there's nothing in the tax bracket, or whatever you wanna call it, higher than 370,000 right here. And of this, I don't know if you could build that same house for 325,000 with the cost of everything that's gone up exponentially. I mean, I wished I had a builder in here that I could ask, what does a 1,200 square foot house stick built cost? I think it'd shock a lot of people what it used to cost to what it would cost now, you know?
So what I distributed tonight is, there's actually two different kind of revisions in this. And it's kind of some feedback that I had heard. One, this addresses the question about Timber Creek East and Timber Creek West. So it amends some language to make it permissible under this program to do houses in those neighborhoods. The other thing that I heard was, so this is just draft language for consideration, is to permit duplexes as another building type. Now this would be one $20,000 incentive per either single family or duplex. So you wouldn't get 40,000 if you did a duplex, you'd still get 20,000. And then the structure limit of 325 would apply to either a single family, or if it was a duplex, it would be per unit, 325,000. Because it would be probably virtually impossible to build a $325,000 duplex building. So this language does both of those.
And that's an owner occupied.
Correct. And it's, the whole program's always been written as an owner, geared towards owner occupied. And that all the duplexes we have, while there may be a rental out there that are intended, that have been built recently in Carroll as owner occupied.
Do they have to stay owner occupied for a certain period of time?
There's nothing in our program today that would restrict that. I think that would be a tough, I mean, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but if
Just
that's,
asking.
yeah. We can track it if that's a direction the council wants to take.
But the intent of the second revision, if I'm understanding you right, and we talked about this before too, is one incentive for one lot regardless of addresses or front doors.
And actually, it's written as one incentive per structure.
Okay.
So if you
A
want
duplex would still be one structure.
correct, if you
Right.
wanted to build a single-family home on 2 lots, you would still just get one 20,000.
I'm with you. Okay. Yep. Yep. That's as it should be.
This is Carolyn. I have a question for Mike. Mike, would we have flexibility if the appraisal that is required to take place, or the assessment by the county to determine the value of the house when it's completed, would we have flexibility if the number came over the cap?
You know, the council always has flexibility in how they administer the program. You know, the cautionary note is, how do you develop your justification in granting that exemption? And certainly that would be something that could be entertained as we get it. I mean, if you get someone and the appraisal comes in at $326,000, you know, the council maybe looks at that. And I know with the workforce housing tax credit program that the state is administering, you know, as that program was getting laid out, they started to put some exemptions in and raise that cap even retroactively. And so it just, and I don't know exactly what they did, if it was I think it was either $10,000 or $20,000, saying, well, if you exceeded it, we'll kind of give you some grace. And part of that was just because of some of the inflationary issues that the state has faced and the country has faced. I think it's all about how do you justify that going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Tom, what kind of number were you thinking?
I don't know the right number. I think I've expressed it in the very beginning of this, that I thought it should be on all lots that are not a new development so far, to use up the existing lots that are out there. I mean, I don't have a number. I just don't know where the cap comes from, or if what type of house people are looking for in that price range, or is it higher?
I mean,
The eventual goal is that the house is gonna be built and there's gonna be a taxable base on it. Whether it's one family, whether it's two houses at 250,000, one house at 500,000, the tax base is the same on both of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I don't see, most of those homes in and around that park structure alone, I would think it well exceeds 325.
Right.
in fact, I think I went through and I only found like 2 or 3. I didn't go look at every one of them that was below it. And so I think that's going to be the issue. Now, what I would suggest is if the council I think there's a lot of question of let's get the program going. My suggestion would be if the council wants to take action, I believe we can justify and include Timber Creek. That's a discretionary area for the council. There's nothing that would cause issue there. If you're concerned about the 325, what I would suggest is move forward with a program, get it off the ground, direct staff to go back and review the 325. We can go back with RDG, maybe others, to come up with a justification to raise that number. I would not arbitrarily pick a number out of the hat. We want to have a good solid, because at the end of the day, it's our attorneys that have to justify it if there's any concerns from a court action. And so let us go back and work on that component.
As stuff comes in, you're saying?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying is we can do that now. If you want to raise the cap, if you're concerned about that, maybe people are happy with the 325. But if there's a concern with it, what I would suggest is direct staff to do additional research on that. We'll work on justification on it. And we may not be able to justify it, but we'll work on it. And then we can bring that back, I would say probably a month from now, just knowing my commitments here that I need to get through. Probably won't be at the next council meeting.
So you're delaying the whole program for a month?
No, I would say implement the
Start now-
program
implement
you have now.
Okay.
And we can look at a second step of how we address that cap.
So if we get a bunch of them coming in that we can fulfill 10 of them at 325, then we just do another 10 and we can up it if we got more people wanting
If that's-
more of.
yeah.
Or if we only get 2 or 3 at 325, if we've got a half a dozen that want it at 450, then we can look at it before these 10 are up.
I would be highly surprised if 10 people submit for a building permit in the next month.
Well, we just don't know
Yeah,
any
we
of
don't
that.
know.
Yeah, I
But-
don't know either.
But the thing is we can be really flexible with this during the 10 or the next 10.
Correct.
All right.
Is if a month from now, if 2 people have gotten a building permit and we come back with a justification, we can make the amendment and then go forward.
All right.
But I would say, like I've said to a couple people, we can't, this is uncharted, like Nathan said, this is kind of uncharted,
Yep.
what we're doing. And if we try to sit here and write the perfect thing, we'll be here for a
Right.
long time.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
We gotta start somewhere, period, end of story, because, if it's 2, great, if it's 10, great, but you gotta get something going to get it started.
You're okay
The
with
only
what?
way we can grow,
You're
yeah.
okay with starting with this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had more concern about excluding, areas, infill, you know. And,
It's one of those things we talked about, and then you go home and think about it, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and again, I think I understand in layman's understanding, which means pretty simple for me, but, you know, your explanation of what, you know, Nathan has explained.
Yeah.
You know, we've got to justify the need for the use of public money.
Yeah.
And when we start getting into, you know, $700,000 homes, then, you know, what, for economic development, well, because we need more doctors and, you know, people that can afford those homes. But I think our problem is solved if we wake up that Tuesday morning, August 2nd, and we've got 10
Yeah.
3 1/4s sitting here, and, you know, then we got it, now we go on to Plan B.
Right.
So, without any further,
So this is still holding off on Northridge and Rolling Hills as that's coming in the next incentive.
Now,
This is
I
the-
do want to throw one thing out there, because I know, so I think Rolling Hills, I'm not aware of any lot that has been pre-sold in Rolling Hills. I'm gonna say that, and tomorrow I'll get an email correcting me, but I know, for example, we do have some lot, at least one lot in Northridge that has sold. So in theory, with the Northridge program we're developing, because we're gonna have CADC purchase lots down there, that pre-sold lot is gonna be kind of excluded out of the Northridge neighborhood, or the Northridge program. So the question is, how do we handle that?
And then with the purchase, and I'm sure it'll come in the language of the Northridge lot purchase, is this something that we purchase them up front, but we have the right to pick which lots we want, or the person that's building would want, kind of a first come, first serve,
I think
versus just buying 10 and saying, these are the 10 that you're getting?
the approach we're gonna work on that with CADC is purchase. We're gonna more have a purchase agreement, a relationship. We're not actually going to get deed on a lot.
Okay.
And then as builders come in, we'll let them kind of select what lots they want to target.
And this is opened up to whether, say, I or Laverne or somebody in the public wants to build, not just somebody that's doing construction or developer.
Correct, it would
Okay.
be open to anyone. I know there was some discussion also kind of on that same line about, do we open it up just to local builders first? You know, there is state code that talks about when you have building activity, that you can't discriminate to contractors within the state of Iowa. You can discriminate against contractors outside the state of Iowa, but you can't do that within the state of Iowa. So I would say, for the most part, you're not gonna see any out-of-state developers, so I wouldn't suggest that would be urgent language we need to consider.
So if you're worried about the out-of-towners coming in right away, if they're not gonna come in for one or two, they're gonna come in for a half a dozen or whatever. So if we get somebody coming in and wants a half a dozen or takes all 10, we just offer another 10, and hopefully the local contractors will jump on that if they missed out on the first boat.
The other
Or
caution,
vice versa, it happens that way.
you know, the other comment I would make is you also have a scenario where how's an out-of-town contractor really gonna find out about it right now?
Right.
So I don't think there's a lot to worry about that
Yeah.
at this initial stage.
Well, I'm just saying if it does happen, then we just jump on another 10. Okay.
Did you really get direction on the Northridge one that's already?
No. That's okay.
Okay.
I mean, it's, again, I think we want to be, I think that one gets a little bit trickier.
Yeah.
And what I would say is maybe what I would suggest is with the 325 is, as we look at that, we can include that Northridge question in that one. And even Rolling Hills South, because I don't know if there's something down in Rolling Hills South. And then we can come back and revisit it, because it does get, I think it gets nuanced and tricky. What I don't want is, because we're trying to get some benefit from the discounted price from the developer, we're trying to get some benefit from the holding costs on the interest, that we really want, see, if someone's gonna get the incentive in Northridge, we really want them to go through the CADC program versus taking the $20,000, because it'll save the city dollars.
Yeah, it's about, the net incentive is about 16.5.
Correct. And so,
So,
I think we wanna write that a little more narrow, and maybe it's down to any lots that were purchased prior to an X date,
Yeah.
and so, I would say let us go back, and I would say again, I would still argue, put something in place today, we'll go back, work on those components, and maybe even that one's probably an easier one, I may be able to have something back in 2 weeks on that.
Okay.
and we talked, just last week about, we don't know exactly how we're going to deal, with the developer out there. Whether or not we're really gonna purchase 10 at a time or commit to 10 at a time, and whether or not the $3,000 discount would apply if we don't buy them all at once, right? So,
The developers made it pretty clear, if you don't buy 10, you don't get a
yeah,
discount,
so,
but,
But if
So-
you buy 10 and you want to buy 2 more, you do get the discount,
yes.
right,
once you hit that 10.
right.
All right.
Okay, well, have we hashed this out enough? I didn't leave my car running, I mean, I got more time on it if you guys do, but, great questions, great input, great, Mike, you've done a world's worth of work on this thing, Laverne.
So this is going to start August 1st.
Correct.
Okay. What about the other organizations that want to help? Private institutions. What do they do? How do they do it? How do they make it known to the public and the builders or whoever?
What I would say is, we're gonna start a clearinghouse of that kind of stuff, so get a hold of me and we'll help get that word out.
Okay.
And I'd be glad, to contact the chamber or member businesses or whatever that want to add a gift card or some kind of incentive as just part of the Welcome Carroll kit. I mean, I'd be glad to. And again, when the media gets a hold of this and people say, yeah, I'd like to be a part of that, I think that'll be like wildfire. I think you'll have a lot of participation there. But I would agree, let's get it started with August 1st and then,
Yeah, if somebody's coming
Hit the
in for
ground
August
running.
1st, they might look at all the other packages that are available too and really jump on it.
Like I heard New Way is gonna give a new car to anyone who buys a house.
Yeah.
Can
So
carry a
we
different
need to, we gotta get it out there that if anybody else wants to incentivize, they've gotta get this in this week.
Or soon. I mean, part of it is, I see this being a building. We're gonna slowly build this program.
Okay.
And, so is this going to be, again, if we're waiting to have the perfect product, we're never gonna get there. We're
Okay.
never gonna get off the ground.
Yeah.
So we're gonna build the parts and we'll keep moving it,
Okay.
okay?
and once again, if we come to work that Tuesday morning and we've got 10 applications there, we don't have a whole lot of more work to do.
Yeah.
It worked,
And by the way, I'll take you up on,
showing up.
going out and talking to businesses.
I'll be
and
glad
getting-
to. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've talked to the chamber about doing some of that work, and so, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll help with that too if you need it.
Okay. You be the heavy.
Okay.
All right. Okay, well, so then we are in order, unless there's anything else, that to consider and approve a resolution for the city's infill housing program with the revisions as proposed.
Yep.
Is that?
And what that would do is it addresses both the Timber Creek East, Timber Creek West neighborhoods, and also would make it permissible for duplexes under this program.
Is there a motion to that
You're gonna
effect?
put this online for people to,
Correct.
okay.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Approval for the resolution of the City of Carroll's infill housing incentive program with suggested revisions. That includes Timber Creek and the duplexes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dirks,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Shrek,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Bordenero.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, we are doing something on housing officially. Wonderful. And then maybe we might have something more in August 8th by the other program. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Okay, Chad, Mike, you're off the hook. It's on to Chad.
my
and
turn.
We got two items here. The first one is ash tree removal project.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the February 14th city council meeting, the city council awarded Western Iowa Tree Service 2 different projects with the Carroll Municipal Golf Course and the parks. This was a total of 50 trees, I believe. As of July 20th, so last week, the owner of Western Iowa Tree Services reached out to me and staff saying he can no longer do the project due to low staffing. The second lowest responsive bidder is Eddie's Limbs in the amounts of $18,000 for the municipal golf course and $14,000 for the parks. Owner Chris Edwards has notified me that he is still willing to honor those project bid prices from February. So it's our recommendation for the city council to consider and approve the next lowest responsive bid to Eddie's Limbs for the removal of 20 trees in the parks at the cost of $14,000 and the municipal golf course 30 trees at the cost of $18,000.
Chad, do you have a deadline when these need to be done?
We did not set a deadline on these.
Would it be wise to do that?
Future projects, possibly.
Looks like you completed the last project pretty quick.
The main reason we didn't is, if somebody were to get the full scope of the project that was looking at 70 trees, could take a while. That you also have to put in kind of the timeline of working in the cemetery as well as working on a golf course. So we wanted to kind of keep this one open-ended and allow the contractor to move through in a timely manner.
The other comment I would make is at this point, if you wanted to add a deadline, we'd have to go back and rebid it
Okay.
because that was
Also
not
true,
a condition.
yeah.
All right.
Yep.
And it still fits within your budget?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Not major shake there. Okay, you heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to that effect?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for to approve the next lowest bid from Eddie's Limbs for removal of 20 trees at the parks, at a cost of $14,000, and a municipal golf course, 30 trees at a cost of $18,000. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bordenero?
Yes.
Schreck?
Yes.
Seaman? Dirks?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Perfect, thank you. And you're still up, Chad. Report of a bid opening on a 60-inch front mount mower for the cemetery.
Yes, thank you. Last week, July 20th, 3 bids were received for a 60-inch front mount mower for the cemetery department. The lowest responsive bid that fell inside our specs was to Reuters for a total price of $23,250. I do want to make 2 mentions on this project. This was a fiscal year 22 capital improvement, general fund project. With that, we will have to go back and make a budget amendment for that. Secondly, there was a lower bid. However, it was just under total horsepower specs that we would require for this unit. So,
Didn't meet the spec?
correct. So, it's our recommendation for city council for consideration approval for the bid from Reuters for a 60-inch mower totaling $23,250. Readers, sorry.
Any other questions for Chad? If not,
Did they say, what's the timeline on getting this, Chad?
Quite a while. And it's been like that with Van Wall, Readers, anybody we've talked to. We are just now, sometime this week or next week, getting in a unit from Jets that we ordered last September.
Okay.
Will they fix the price?
Yes, price is
Yeah, 'cause,
fixed.
the same vendor
Yep,
had a problem with their their pickup, their straight truck.
sure. Yep, at least it's to my knowledge that nothing has changed. At least nothing has been communicated with us. Most of our mowers right now have been about 6 months. So,
Yeah, which is why it's probably a little bit more confident, because they're talking a year and a half on the straight truck, so. Any other questions for Chad? If not, I'd seek a motion to approve the bid from Readers
So moved.
in the amount of $23,250. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dirks,
Yes.
Bordenaro. Shrek,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, item 9, committee reports. Comments from the mayor, I have none. Comments from the city council? There are none. Comments from the city manager?
None this evening.
There are none. We've already out. We are in order for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bordenaro,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Shrek.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.